Suppose God challenged a scientist to estimate how old things were at the end of the 6 days of creation. God tells the scientist that any and all scientifically advanced technology can be used. The scientist agrees, and God first asks the question, how old is the universe? After some experimentation and calculation, the scientist responds, 12 to 14 billion years old, give or take. God says, how did you get that number? Well, the scientist says, I can use either the traditional method or the white dwarf cooling method. And they're kind of complicated, God, so allow me to explain them both to you. If I want to use the traditional method, I can measure the universe's expansion rate to calculate the age of the cosmos. I determine the expansion rate by measuring the distance of Earth to nearby galaxies. I then compare those measurements with the speed at which those galaxies are receding from Earth. This in turn gives me the age of the universe. On the other hand, I can just as easily use the white dwarf cooling method. With this method, I study the faintest white dwarfs in a globular cluster. You see, God, globular clusters are among the oldest clusters of stars in the universe, and the faintest and coolest white dwarfs within globular clusters represent the oldest stars in the clusters. And so using my handy-dandy Hubble telescope, I can observe that the first stars formed less than 1 billion years after the universe's birth in the Big Bang. And so finding the oldest stars within the oldest cluster of stars enables me to calculate the universe's age. God says, okay, how about the Earth? How old is the Earth? The scientist does some experimentation and calculations, perhaps using carbon dating methods, and says to God, it's about 4.6 billion years old. And God replies, are you certain about that? And the scientist smugly retorts, of course, science. God follows up with another question, how old is this man? And God shows Adam to the scientist. The scientist yawns and says, you know, God, this has been fun and all, but I'm starting to get a little bit bored. He's a strapping young lad, and if my eyes don't deceive me, I would say he's probably somewhere in his early to mid-20s. And God replies, are you sure there isn't more than meets your eye? One last question. How old is this lady? You see, depending on how you view the image, you will either see a young lady wearing a thin necklace with her face turning away, or you will see the profile of an old lady with a rather large nose and thin lips. Things are not always as they might appear. You know those stars you were using in your calculations? Yeah, I made those 2 days ago. And by the way, I know every one of them by name, because I named them myself. You know the dry earth that you were using in your calculations? I made that about 3 days ago. And you know that man that you thought was at least 20 years old based off of his appearance alone? I made him 30 minutes ago. The universe is only 6 days old. It just has the appearance of being much older. Your calculations are so completely off because I made everything from nothing. Therefore, everything has the appearance of being older than it actually is. You could cut down any tree you see here, count the rings, and tell me how old you think it is. But you would be wrong, because you can't judge the age of the universe by its cover. You have to judge it by its author, and that would be me. As I've said repeatedly in my word, I stretch the heavens out like a curtain. For example, I had my prophet Isaiah write this in Isaiah 40, verses 21 through 22. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. Just from this verse alone, you can see that the earth is circular. And you can also see that if I'm stretching the heavens out like a curtain, then that shows that the universe is expanding, something that we've only known scientifically for a very short while.